Okay, so in this video, we'll be taking a look at fractional indices, fractional powers, and also revising the laws of indices for question 13, 14, and 15 using the multiplication rule, the division rule, and the power to power rule, for the last one. Okay, as ever guys, please feel free to obviously pause this video, try these questions yourself, and then press play when you're ready. This is aimed at GCSE maths, but I'm doing this specifically for bridging the gap between GCSE and A-level maths, because I'm aware that a lot of you will probably forget this, over the summer, hence why I'm doing videos about topics which are bridging the gap, so going from GCSE to A-level maths, This is question number 1, 4 to the power of a half. So in maths, anything to the power of a half just means the square root, or the second root we say. So the square root of 4, which is just 2. So power of a half means square root. Question number 2, 27 to the power of a third. Well, that's the cube root of 27. So it's the third root of 27, or we say cube root of 27. And the answer for that is 3. Because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, guys. So this is revising your knowledge on square and cube numbers. So make sure that you are happy with your squares and your cube numbers, So 2 times 2, or 2 to the power of 2, we say, is 4. This is the third question. 1/9 to the power of a half. Well, the power of a half is just square root. So square root of a ninth. Square root the top. Square root the bottom. Square root of 1 is just 1, and the square root of 9 is just 3. Because 3 squared, or 3 to the power of 2, is 9, and 1 squared, 1 times 1, which is 1. Question number 4, 5 to the power of minus 2, so 5 to the negative 2, so that's a negative index. So the rule here says that if I have a negative indice, it's the inverse, so it's 1 over that number to the power of 2, so that minus power means 1 over. It's the reciprocal. Imagine it's 5 over 1. The reciprocal of that, is 1 over 5. So there's 1 over 5 squared, which is 1 over 25. Or 1/25. So the negative power is the inverse, it is the reciprocal, so I'm doing 1 over that number, to the power of that, but obviously it becomes positive rather than negative, because the 1 over changes that from a negative to a positive, by the definition of the rule. Question number 5, 18 to the power of 0, well, anything to the power of 0 in maths is just 1, Question number 6, 7 to the minus 1. Well, that's just 1/7. 1 over 7 to the power of 1, which is just 1/7. This one's a bit more trickier. 27 to the power of 2/3. Well, it's the cube root of 27, which is 3, and then I raise it to the power of the numerator. So it's 3 raised to the power of 2, which is 3 times 3, which is just 9, guys. So the answer to question 7 is just 9. Question number 8, 2/3 to the minus 2. Well, the minus flips it, so it becomes 3/2 to the power of 2, so remember that the minus power is the reciprocal, 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, so the answer is 9/4, or 2 1/4, or 2.25. Question number 9, again, that's a bit more involved. So 8 to the negative 2/3. So let's just deal with the negative first. So it's 1 over 8 to the power of 2/3. Okay, which is 1 over, and then it's the cube root. Okay, so it's the root for my denominator of the fraction. Okay, so 1 over the cube root of 8. Okay, or the third root of 8, which is 2. Okay, a half, or 1 over 2. And then I raise that to the power of 2, guys. So the answer is just 1/4, because 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, question number 10, guys. Okay, sorry about the lack of space here. Okay, what I can do, actually, I'll do it over here, over question number 10, so we've got a bit more space. I'm going to change that decimal into a fraction to make it easier. So 0.04 is actually 400ths, okay? Or I could even simplify that, but I thought I'd write it as 400ths because then it makes it a bit clearer. The power of a half means I'm taking the square root of 400ths. So it's the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of 100, which is 10. So the answer is just 2/10, okay, or 1/5, or 0.2. Okay, so 1/5, okay, and then the final answer would just be 0.2, okay, because 0.2 squared gives you 0.04, guys, okay. So hopefully it made sense, that question. Okay, so I changed it into a fraction. The power of a half, remember that it's the square root that I take. Okay, next one, 8/27 to the power of 2/3. So it's the cube root of 8/27. So I'm taking the cube root of 8/27. So the cube root of 8 is 2, and the cube root of 27 is 3. We can see from here. Okay, and then I'm going to raise it to the power of the numerator. So 2/3 to the power of 2. Now 2 squared is 4, and 3 squared is 9. So your final answer becomes 4/9 for that question. Okay. So always deal with the root part first. So deal with the denominator first and then the numerator. Okay. For these questions, I could have squared it and then taken the cube root, but it would have made the sum a bit more trickier, okay? I'm trying to make the sum as easy as possible by taking the root first and then raising it to the power, okay? Because I'm dealing with like smaller numbers once I've taken the root. Okay, question number 12. 1/16 to the power of minus 3/2. So I flip that, so it's 16 over 1, or just 16. So it's 16 to the power of 3/2. Or 3 over 2, okay, so it's a square root of 16, which is 4, and then I raise it to the power of 3, it becomes 64, okay, so it's the square root of 16, guys, okay, that power of 2 on the bottom is a square root, or the second root, which is 4, and then I cubed my answer, I raised it to the power of the numerator, so 4 cubed is 64, guys. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's just delete some of these arrows here so we've got a bit more space just to answer these last few questions. Okay, question number 13, simplify each of the following. So it's looking at the laws of indices. 2a to the half times 3a to the 5/2. Well, I do 2 times 3, which is 6. A to the half times a to the 5th. Now the rules of indices state that if I multiply with the same base, so the same letter, I just add the powers. A half plus 5/2 is 6/2, which is just 3. Okay, so just to obviously summarize here, guys, that if I have x to the power of a times x to the power of b, I would just do x to the a plus b, okay, provided that the base letter or numbers are the same, okay. I've got a to the half times a to the 5 halves. I did a half plus 5 halves. While adding fractions, I just add the numerators together and keep the denominator the same. So it becomes 6 halves. 6 halves, we should know, okay, that's just equal to 3. Okay, 6 divided by 2 is just 3, guys. Okay. Question number 14, x cubed times x to the minus 2. Well, again, adding the powers, but being a bit careful here. I'm doing 3 plus minus 2, which is 3 take away 2, which is going to be just x to the power of 1, or just x, okay? Because what I'm doing here is I'm doing 3 plus minus 2, okay? I'm doing 3 plus minus 2, then it goes to 3 subtract 2, which is 1. Okay, last question, guys. What I might do is just delete this so I've got a bit more space. So I apologise for deleting my previous answers, but feel free to obviously go back and re-watch any bits, okay, if necessary. Okay, the last one, I've got x to the half, y to the 4, or to the power of a half. So that's just taking the square root of x squared, or y to the 4. Now this one's obviously a bit trickier because it involves algebra. Normally I can take square roots of a number. The same applies here. If I separate it, so I'm going to have x squared, or the square root of x squared, times the square root of y to the 4. Now this will become a bit more clearer now. We should know that the square root of x squared is just x, okay? Because x times x makes x squared, okay, so be very careful. X times x is x squared, okay, x add x is 2x and not x squared, okay, if you're multiplying it's written as a power. And the square root of y to the 4, well that's just y squared, because y squared times y squared, using the laws of indices, I get y to the 2 plus 2, which is y to the 4. Okay, so my answer is x y squared or y squared x. Now a different way that I could have done this is that I could have said, okay, well I've got x squared raised to the half. Now if I've got powers raised to like another power, then the power law, so the third power law states that if I have something that looks like this, x to the a raised to the power of b, okay, I will just multiply the numbers together. So I'll have x to the ab. So using this law, I can do 2 times a half, which is just 1. Okay, x to the power of 1, or just x. Y to the 4 times a half, well, it becomes y squared, okay, because 4 times a half means divide it by 2. A half times 4 gives me 2, which is where this 2 has come from. Okay, so that's another way of doing it, using that power rule, okay, or that power to power rule, I say. Okay, so if it's raised to a power, okay, then you multiply the powers. Okay, that's the third rule, guys. Okay, that's the first rule, and that's the second. Sorry, the second one is if you're dividing, then you subtract the powers. Okay. So make sure that you are happy with your laws of indices. Okay, so make sure that you're happy with all of these law of index. Okay, rules. Okay, do plenty of practice on these, okay, from Corbett Maths or Maths Genie or Exam QA, okay, or any website that is giving out, yeah, like free questions for the laws of indices, okay. Right guys, that's the end of today's video. I sincerely hope you found it useful. If you did, please hit that like button, please subscribe to the channel if you're new, and lastly, please click that bell icon so you don't miss out on further videos and further uploads. Okay, but that's it from me today guys. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon, okay? Bye for now.